everybody, and welcome to Morning Coffee on the Radio Vision Network. I am Mark Cook, and it is a fine Friday in September. It's a little hot, but hey, it's all good, baby, because we're moving into the fall, and we're moving right into the Skype line this morning to talk to our resident sports guy, Neil Villapiano. You can catch him every Saturday right here on Radio Vision Network on the MVP show, Saturdays at 10 o'clock. Good morning, Neil, and welcome back to Morning Coffee.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, we got to talk about this Patriots-Texans game that went down last night. This is just so unbelievable that the Patriots, it doesn't matter what happens to this team, they not only find a way to win, they found a way to dominate last night. What happened?
What you saw is an absolute domination by a New England, a Bill Belichick coach team, 27-0. And Jacoby Brissett, the rookie quarterback out of North Carolina State, who had to come into the game for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo, who got injured last week, he played mistake-free football. He really didn't force anything. He did some read options, which I've never seen before in a Bill Belichick offense, but he based his offense around the guys he had, and that's the sign of a really good coach. And so I was not shocked at all that the Patriots won this game. I was, however, surprised that the Texans barely got close to the end zone and didn't even come close to scoring any points.
Yeah, Osweiler looked terrible. Honestly, their offense is such a mess. And when the defense doesn't hold the way they need to, that Texans team looks like they're going to be disappointing again this year.
Well, I mean, if you just look at it, it's been tough for the last couple of years for the Texans because they've been trying to find that franchise quarterback. A couple of years ago, they thought it was going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that wasn't the case. Last year, they thought it was either going to be Ryan Mallett or Brian Hoyer. That wasn't the case. We're only 3 weeks into this season, and Brock Osweiler has been so-so. But, it's still early in the year, but they're hoping that maybe Osweiler could be the quarterback of the future for the Texans because throughout most of their history, they really haven't had that franchise quarterback that they can lean on. They have a franchise player in J.J. Watt, but other than that, they really just don't have a lot on offense except DeAndre Hopkins and the rookie receiver out of Notre Dame, Will Fuller. So we have to wait and see how the season progresses and whether or not Brock Osweiler is the real deal.
Yeah, it's weird because they did the Arian Foster flip with Lamar Miller in Miami, and Miller is a really talented player, but he just doesn't seem like he's finding his way in the NFL the way they kind of thought he was going to. Do you see any improvement in Houston's running game coming up here? Like, fantasy impact-wise, is Lamar Miller a guy I want to play each week?
Well, I think Lamar Miller is a stable running back if you're doing fantasy. I mean, next week he probably should have a good game. They're taking on the Titans at home. I would definitely expect them to give the ball to him a lot. But I think that what the Texans really want to do is really open up their passing game because they spent all this money on Brock Osweiler. They have a tremendous receiver in Will Fuller and also DeAndre Hopkins, and they haven't gotten a lot out of them yet so far this year. So I expect a good mix of running pass, but definitely a little bit more pass. But it wouldn't be a bad choice to have him as your running back in this week's fantasy, and maybe even next week when they take on the Vikings defense. So it's still, like I said, it's early in the season. We don't really know who's going to come out on top of anything right now, but we'll have to wait and see as the year progresses.
Yeah, well, after week 3, I like to make really hard knee-jerk reactions, and like we're going to win the Super Bowl or the sky is falling or whatever. But back to the New England side, what is it, Neil? How can they just plug in these guys out of nowhere? Is it really Belichick's system? Is the system that rock solid that it doesn't matter who their players are, they're just going to win because the system is that good?
I think it's not only just Bill Belichick, but I think it's a lot about the people around him, his staff, his scouting assistants. For years, he has found guys in the late rounds and maybe even free agents that have come up and played well. I remember a couple of years ago in 2011 when the Patriots went to the Super Bowl against the Giants the second time, Bill Belichick signed Chad Ochocinco in week 12, and he blossomed and played very well in the Bill Belichick offense and helped them get to that Super Bowl. Another example probably would be, the obvious example is Tom Brady. 6th round draft pick 199, comes out of nowhere and now is probably one of the top 5 greatest quarterbacks to ever play. And there's a list of guys. You look at a guy like LeGarrette Blount, who had problems 2 years ago with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He gets picked up by the New England Patriots, and all of a sudden he's their number one running back and one of the better players on the team.
Yeah, well, it was great last night. I got Blunt on my fantasy team, and I've got a 26-point lead right now because the dude blew up. He had a 41-yard touchdown run. He had 2 touchdowns, over 120 yards. Like, it's just amazing that these guys go to New England and their careers just like come back to life. Patrick Chung on the defensive side is a great example of that. This dude stunk. I watched him play for the Eagles, and he was horrible. He goes to the Patriots, and he makes a freaking Pro Bowl. How does that happen? It's got to be the system. It's crazy up there.
It's kind of like the Cowboys back in the Tom Landry era, definitely back in the 70s. They have a system that works. And it's not just the players, it's definitely that system and how they want to go. Like, I was talking to somebody before, Bill Belichick runs a tight ship. He really does. He really cares about discipline. He wants his guys to be focused on their job. He always says, if you listen to his mic'd up things, always saying, do your job. He really, and it's just 1 or 2 things for these players. It's not that complicated. And when everybody just does their job on the Patriots, they have a lot of success. And so I really think it's mostly the system, but also the players on the field as well.
So let's switch gears real quick and go to that MLB wildcard race in the National League. You know, last night, the Mets and the Phillies, what a game that was. I mean, it was like lead change after lead change. The Phillies kept, battling back, taking the lead. The Mets kept battling back, taking the lead back from them. So in the 9th inning, the Phillies have a 2-run lead. The Mets tie it, force extras. In the 11th, the Phillies take the lead, but then in the bottom of the 11th, the Mets come back out and they take the game. They hit who was it? Cabrera hit a home run, and the Mets, they win a huge game last night and gain a half game on the wild card. Did you watch it, Neil? What's going on with the Mets today?
I didn't get a chance to watch most of the game. I did get alerts, and it was definitely frustrating to see how the Phillies could have a 2-run lead twice and not win the game. It's definitely aggravating, but you also got to give a lot of credit to the Mets. This year that is very interesting is that they don't give up very easily. Obviously, they're coming off a tough series getting swept at home by the last place Atlanta Braves, and they're coming into their last home series of the regular season knowing that they're holding on for dear life in this playoff race, and they knew they had to get off to a good start. And they were unfortunately on the verge of getting off to a bad start, but as Druba Cabrera came up with runners on base, and he walked it off for the Mets. So kudos to the Mets, and this is obviously, like I said, a good start for them in the series.
Yeah, it's a really weird dynamic right now because the Phillies are really enjoying that spoiler role. I saw a lot of pregame stuff yesterday. They were excited to play in New York. They know that they've got 5 more games with the Mets before the end of the year, with 3 with Florida kind of mixed in there. So the Phillies were looking to finish strong, even though they're not going anywhere. The Mets looked like a team in the beginning of that game that was just beat, like they were not going to be fighting for their playoff lives. And then the next thing you know, really, Neil, you know what it was? It was the Phillies bullpen. The Phillies bullpen right now is horrible. Jeanmar Gomez, who had a great first half of the year, this guy can't save a game to save his life. And I think that the Mets really understand how the Phillies work right now, and they just need to be patient. And it stinks as a Phillies fan watching the bullpen blow these leads. What do you think the approach for the Mets is going to be tonight? Basically, just get to the bullpen again?
No, I don't think necessarily you need to get to the bullpen early, but what I think what the Phillies really need to do is get some offense rolling immediately. Get some runs here early on in the game. Try to build a lead so that in case you need to go to your bullpen for any reason early on, or when you have to go to your bullpen in the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th innings, you at least have some cushion in case something goes wrong and you have a chance to either hold on to a lead or at least force them to tie it or hold them to a one-run lead. And so, look, you look at the Phillies, and obviously there are a bunch of very young players who are very inexperienced, but I think it's going to take time for them to really develop. So a lot of these mistakes you're seeing, obviously as a Phillies fan, yes, it's very frustrating. For any baseball fan, it's frustrating to see your team have these problems. But you also have to understand that if you look at it, the Phillies are going to get better as the years go on because if you look at how they're developing players, some of the young guys that they have with Aaron Nola, Hellickson, Herrera, Galvis, even a few other guys, you just have to really think about the future. And I know it's frustrating right now, but going back to your question, I don't necessarily think you need to go to the bullpen early, but you're hoping that you don't have to.
Well, I think that the strategy for the Mets is to knock the Phillies starter out so that they get into the bullpen because that's really where they seem to feast. Because the Phillies, Morgan last night, he pitches pretty well. He gives up a couple runs, right? Like he kind of keeps the Phillies in the game, but then the next thing you know, the bullpen comes in and all the wheels fall off the bus. It's crazy. I'm gonna throw something at you. It's this concept of a shutdown inning. It's been the Phillies' biggest problem all year. They score runs. And then the very next inning, the bottom of that inning, when they're on the road, they give up those runs back. And that, as a fan, is the most frustrating thing when you score runs and then the pitcher goes out and then gives those runs right back. You can never get any positive momentum when you're in a scenario like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about any team, especially some teams like I've watched the Yankees numerous times this year where they have a shutdown inning. But in that case, sometimes managers make decisions that just backfire a lot, and sometimes you need to score a lot of offenses. The case with the Yankees early on in the year probably was when Michael Pineda was really struggling. The Yankees had to score a lot of runs in an offense that was really, really bad, and they weren't able to get a lot of runs. And so when Pineda would have a bad game or a bad inning, it would just be terrible.
Yeah, so let's switch gears again real quick because yesterday I got home and I saw Finland and Russia were playing in that World Cup of hockey, and the Russians were dominating.
Right.
So
and that was,
are they?
And honestly, is anybody really that surprised? I know Finland is still very talented with a lot of NHL experience, but you have to understand. You look at what the Russians have. They have Alexander Ovechkin, probably the fastest skater in the world, and the only guy I've ever seen to average 50 goals a year. That's incredible. And then you have a guy like Evgeny Malkin, who I believe looks like he's 6'9" on skates, and he's huge for his body type. He just looks like an enforcing player. And then you also have some pretty good goaltending. It's Semyon Varlamov and Sergei Bobrovsky. And you have a few other guys on that Russian team, including some young guys like Artemi Panarin from the Chicago Blackhawks. And they just continue to get better every year. And their development of players is phenomenal. That's why, in my opinion, they're definitely one of the top 3 countries in the world when it comes to hockey.
Yeah, it was amazing how much faster the Russians were than Finland. I didn't watch very much of it because it was 3-0 when I turned it on in the beginning of the third period. But so what's the rest of this tournament look like for the weekend? Is there any big games coming up?
Unless I'm going to check, I'm not totally sure, but I definitely, we're getting into the playoff format now. We're getting into those semifinals. Obviously, Russia's going to be playing Canada in the semifinals, so that's probably the biggest game you're going to want to watch, the 2 of the hockey superpowers in the world. So definitely you want to keep your eye on them, and obviously you want to keep your eye on Team North America.
Yeah, well,
you really got to keep an eye on them because they continue to impress people and really, really make games exciting.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. For the people that don't know out there, the Team North America is all of the young kids from U.S. and Canada. They're 23 or 24 and under? They're like all the prospects, and they put
younger.
Yeah, they put them all on one team. It's awesome. It's really cool to watch because you're watching the future talent of the NHL and the future talent of hockey all playing on one team. It's really, really a cool thing.
Absolutely, it's really fun to watch.
So you've got a big show coming up here tomorrow, the MVP show at 10 o'clock here on the Radio Vision Network. So just give me a little bit of a preview. If you want to preview your show, preview any games that I should be looking for this weekend, take it away, Neil.
Sure, absolutely. So like I said, my show is on tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. So make sure you get a chance, 10 a.m. Make sure you get a chance to watch that show. It's obviously a lot of fun. It's going to be another college football type preview. We're going to go over a couple games, including yesterday, like I said, Michigan versus Penn State. Should be a really fun game to watch. Another good game that could be interesting to watch is Rutgers versus Iowa. Rutgers' first Big Ten game here at home this year against a top 25 team in Iowa who's coming off a big loss last week to North Dakota State. And we're also going to give a little bit of preview about the NHL season, about who's going to win divisions, who's going to make the playoffs, who might win the Stanley Cup, who's going to be MVP, all that stuff. So make sure tomorrow you check me out, the MVP show, 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's about an hour show, so it should be a lot of fun, Mark.
Yeah, it sounds great. Everybody needs to tune in. And let's not forget the Eagles-Steelers on Sunday. The Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia since like 1950-something. It's been a really tough run. The Eagles are 8-0 in that run, and I have to check the date. I know that date's not right, but the Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia in a long time. What do you think about the Steelers-Eagles game this weekend?
Should be fun. Honestly, I just love watching Carson Wentz play. I think every game he gets to develop more and more. I think it's going to be more interesting with a really talented Pittsburgh defense. And I expect it to be a back-and-forth game. I expect it to be a shootout, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. And make sure you check out Neil Villapiano on the MVP show on the Radio Vision Network right here at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. Neil, thanks for spending a few minutes with us this morning.
No problem. Happy to do it as always.
Awesome. Have a great day. And everybody out there, you need to stick around because we are going to be right back. We're cooking. We're going in the kitchen, baby. That's right. Stay right there. We'll be right back here on Morning Coffee on the Radio Vision Network.
Today's show is sponsored by Hargrove Demolition, your demolition experts. Hargrove is a family-owned and operated business right here in the southern New Jersey area, bringing you 45 years of demolition expertise. Hargrove has all your demolition needs, from emergency demolition service to demolition equipment rental. Hargrove is one of the state-approved recycling facilities right here in the southern New Jersey area. No job is too big or too small for Hargrove Demolition. Contact them today at one of their 3 locations.
When it's time for Jersey Mike's to give a sub some sizzle, this is the way. The way it's always been. The way it always should be. The way it always will be. Because that's just the way it's supposed to be. Jersey Mike's. Be a sub above.
If you haven't been to Speed Raceway, what are you waiting for? You want to live fast? You want to make every second count? Then grab the family. Round up the guys. Speed Raceway is 100,000 square feet of excitement, whether you're a kid or a kid at heart. Speed Raceway is the place for endless fun all summer long. Log on to speedraceway.com or just get here now.
When we make Beyond Natural dry dog and cat foods, we start with real meat as the first ingredient. We leave out corn, wheat, and soy. And we own where our dry food is made. 100%. Can other brands say all that? For nutrition you can trust and your pet will enjoy. Does your food go beyond? Learn more at purinabeyond.com.
Extra Innings is the nation's premier indoor baseball and softball training center, featuring indoor batting cages, 7 multi-use tunnels, and training rooms. Extra Innings can provide professional instruction, private and group lessons, and the best year-round clinics. Along with a nationally recognized pro shop that features the latest and widest selection of equipment and apparel, our experienced staff can provide you with the right instruction and help you find the best equipment for your ability and budget. Extra Innings, where the game never ends.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts.